A company called Soonwell has taken another stab at the flexible LED light, and today we're going to evaluate if their efforts have made this peculiar category of products a more compelling purchase. Let's get undone. Gerald Undone. He's crazy. What is happening, everybody? I'm Gerald Undone, and here I've got Soonwell's new FB-21 bicolor flexible LED light. Now, flexible LEDs themselves aren't new. In fact, back in 2017, we've already been through this whole cycle where the premium, more expensive brands release their products, and then the more cost-effective brands produce their follow-ups. And after the dust settled back then, it seemed like the Falcon Eyes was probably the best value option for flexible LEDs, but it wasn't without its cons. In fact, Caleb from DSLR Video Shooter made a fantastic roundup of these products back in June 2017 that I highly recommend you watch, and I'll put a link to that video in the description below. Now fast forward a year and a half later, and here's Soonwell making remarkably similar products to those Falcon Eyes models I just mentioned. They're similarly priced, come with the same accessories, hell, even the LCD screen on the control box looks identical to the one on the Falcon Eyes. So today I'm hoping to answer two questions. One, are flexible LED lights worth it? And two, has Soonwell done anything with their new FB-21 to make them more worth it? So let's start answering question one by doing a general overview of the FB-21. So it's 12 inches by 24 inches, or 1 foot by 2 feet, and it has 504 LEDs. It's a bicolor light, so half of the diodes are cool and half of the diodes are warm, and it's about 10,000 lux at half a meter in terms of output, so that puts it about 70% of the power of the Aperture 120D, and about 1.5 times brighter than my old recommendation, the Aperture 672. It has a color accuracy rating of 95 plus on CRI, and the color temperatures range from 3000 to 5600 Kelvin. Its beam angle is essentially wide open, so without a modifier, expect the light to span the full 180 degrees when you have it stretched out on the included frame. It's also incredibly light and weighs only about 500 grams, so just over a pound. It attaches to a control box, which can be powered by either the included AC adapter or by V-mount batteries, which are sold separately. Regardless of the power option though, there's no discernible noise generated, which is good. And you can use the included V-mount strap adapter to attach the power supply to the control box, which is really convenient. It comes in a little bit cheaper than some of the other brands, but we're still talking a little bit over $300 US, depending on the model and whether you buy directly from their store at Soonwell or from Amazon. To use it more traditionally on a light stand, you put it in this folding frame, and then you use an adapter that goes from spigot to spigot. This mechanism is again lifted from older designs, and I wish it would have been improved upon because the way it currently is with the spigot to spigot adapter, it's at a 90-degree max, so there's no real way to tilt the light on a downward angle. There's also an included softbox attachment, which is good for controlling the angle of the beam and for providing a little bit of diffusion to break up the diodes, but it's not too impressive because I could still see the individual diodes through the fabric. So if we just stop here and compare it as it is, let's see if we're getting decent value. My old value recommendation, which is the Aperture 672 behind an umbrella, will cost you around $320 US. That'll be $300 for the light and then $10 to $20 for an umbrella. And with that, you get a high quality light with great colors, a good remote control, multiple power options, and the batteries are included. Now, if you're willing to step down the quality a little bit and fuss with some dials and give up some conveniences, you can get a similarly powered Amazon brand light for about $100 US and still put that behind a $10 or $20 umbrella and save close to $200 total. And that might be the best option for somebody just starting out. But if we compare the Soonwell directly with the Aperture, I think it's reasonable that the Soonwell costs 10 to 15% more since it does provide 50% more output. You also get a larger light source with the Soonwell, and it's lighter and easier to move around, but you don't get the included batteries or the remote control like you do with the Aperture. You also get a different distribution of light and different shadows, but I'll let you decide which one you like better. So right now, this is the Aperture 672 through an umbrella at about 30% power. And here's the Soonwell FB-21 in the same position using their included softbox, also at 30% power. And here it is at 9% power to try and match the output of the Aperture through an umbrella at 30%. Make sure you let me know in the comments which light you preferred the look of. So it's at this point that I've always found flexible LEDs difficult to broadly recommend. Because if you're just going to stick it on a light stand and use it that way, you might be better off saving some money, getting a cheaper traditional panel, and simpler diffusion options. However, if you can take advantage of the fact that it is flexible, then it becomes a more compelling purchase option. Now, I can't tell you every possible idea one could have for positioning this light in interesting ways, but we can cover some of the basics. So if we ditch the frame, we're left with Velcro and D-rings. The Velcro is great for inconspicuously attaching this light to fabrics or to attach to the roof of the car when you want to light from within but you don't have enough space. The D-rings allow you to basically hang it from anything without having to take up floor space with a light stand, and because it's so lightweight, the number of objects that can support it is nearly infinite. But even if you just wanted to stick it to a wall where the hooks and the Velcro aren't going to help, you can just tape it to whatever surface you want as well. It's also flexible, which means that it can be curled or rolled as well. Now, it's not going to stay in this shape on its own, but again, you could use the Velcro to hold it in that way, or use it to roll it up and create a 360-degree light source. You can put it in cupboards, closets, under desks,
on the bed, on the floor, on a towel by the door, in the tub, in the car, up against the minibar.
Again, it would be completely up to whatever you needed on your shoot. But the light is impressively accommodating when you have a space restriction. And if that's the kind of thing you're going to be using it for, then it's totally worth the money. And that's my answer to our first question. Are flexible LED lights worth it? Only if you will definitely be taking advantage of the flexible aspects of the light. Otherwise, I think traditional panels are better options. Now with that, I wanted to give a quick note on one of the commonly talked about aspects of flexible LED lights, which is the compact storage and setup. Now while it's true that these lights can pack up rather compactly, I don't find that it's that much different compared to the bag that comes with a traditional panel. But more importantly, I find them to be a pain to set up, especially if you attach the optional softbox. Trying to bend and wedge the frame into the sockets and then line up the Velcro from the softbox along the lines without having it stick to everything that you don't want it to along the way was a time-consuming pain. Compared to my current method of just screwing a spigot into the thread on my panel and then popping an umbrella open, I found this to be much more annoying. So I don't think that factor adds much of a positive for purchasing. If anything, I'd say it goes to support my claim that these lights are worse lights when it comes to light stands because they're easier to set up and use in strange places, but harder to set up and give you worse tilt options when putting them on a light stand. But one aspect that I feel that I might have underplayed is the value of having a larger light source. You definitely would not want a 12 by 24 inch traditional panel because that would be very heavy and very difficult to modify in the same way. So if having a larger light source is important to you, but you don't have the space for a COB and dome combination like the Aperture 120D, then this might be the only appropriate middle ground. And with that, that's one thing that this new light from Soonwell has improved upon. The FB-21 offers another new size to go along with their lineup. I like the 2x1 dimensionality of this light and find that aspect ratio to be quite useful, often more so than a square light. So that's my first point directed at question 2, which is, has Soonwell done anything with their light to make flexible LEDs more worth it? And they have, but they've also improved the control box. First up, I like the inclusion of the twin controls. You've got this touch panel here, like we talked about, that looks just like the ones on the Falcon Eyes, and you can use that to adjust the color temperature or the brightness. But we also have controls on this end that you can use as well, which are much easier to use and see when you have this hanging from a light stand with the included sling. And the best part is that the adjustments aren't in 5% jumps anymore, but they're in 1% increments all the way down to 0%. This is something I always love to see and really appreciate it when companies implement this. Another improvement is the accuracy of the color temperatures. Lights that are bicolor that are configured to have 5600K as their coolest temperature often have an issue where at lower brightnesses, the temperature jumps too much when changing the Kelvin by a small degree. For example, if you're at 10% power, and you change the Kelvin from 5600K to 5500K, you'll see something more like a 700 to 800 Kelvin difference instead of the 100K that you were expecting. It's because when the lights are dim, the act of switching on the warm diodes has a huge impact on the temperature because the mix was optimized for brighter outputs. I'm happy to report, however, that on the FB-21, this problem subsides rather quickly as you increase brightness, better than I've seen in some of the competition. The difference was reduced to a mere 200K discrepancy at 25% power and was completely gone and perfectly accurate at 50% brightness. Another improvement over the competition is the consistency in output over those temperatures. Usually with bicolor lights, you have to go somewhere in the middle, like 4200K, to get full power. But on this light, I measured very little difference in terms of brightness throughout the temperature range once you get past that first little bump at 5600K, and then it's pretty consistent all the way through. Lastly, the flexing of the light produces much less noise than its competition. Some lights in this category sound like you're crumpling wrapping paper when you flex the light, but this light, while not silent, is much more reasonable. I think that these improvements make the FB-21 one of the best value flexible LED light options available, but the same considerations about usage and if you're going to be taking advantage of the flexible aspects of the light still need to be applied when deciding if a flexible LED light is the right call for you. But that's going to be it for me. I hope you found this video helpful or at least entertaining, and if you did, make sure you leave it the old thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. But if you did not find this video helpful or entertaining, feel free to hit the dislike button twice. Alright, I'm done.